President Xi Jinping says China and North Korea will jointly fight against hegemony and attempts to revive militarism that threatens regional security.
There was no specific mention of who the statement was aimed at, but it comes a day after Pyongyang reaffirmed its nuclear-armed status, saying there's no backing down from it.
The Chinese leader will be in Pyongyang today for a two-day visit. He's said to be looking to bolster economic and diplomatic ties, saying it's Beijing's unwavering policy to safeguard and upgrade relations between the neighbors.
This is Mr. Xi's first visit to North Korea in almost 7 years. He last met the leader Kim Jong-un at a victory parade in Beijing last year. And more significantly, and underscoring the importance of the relationship, Mr. Xi is traveling to Pyongyang, which is his first foreign trip this year. It comes in the back of him hosting separate summits with the leaders of Russia and the U.S.
Observers say the Chinese leader's two-day trip to North Korea is part of Beijing's efforts to draw Pyongyang into Beijing's orbit after the North embarked on bolstering its military and nuclear capabilities through closer cooperation with Russia. China's foreign ministry says the summit will see an exchange of views between the leaders over bilateral and common issues.
Well, North Korea has been arming itself to bolster its capabilities against a perceived threat posed by South Korea and its ally, the U.S. It has developed its nuclear and missile technology with Russia's help and contributed troops to Moscow's war effort in Ukraine in return. It also announced plans to expand its missile production capacity by 2.5 times over the next 5 years, as well as modernize its destroyer fleet as part of improving its overall deterrence plan.
For more on what we can expect and the significance of President Xi's visit to Pyongyang, let's speak now with Jenny Town, Senior Fellow and Director at 38 North at the Stimson Center. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Jenny. I want to start by asking you, where exactly does North Korea sit right now, globally, but more importantly, regionally, given the wars in the Middle East, in Ukraine, and also the China-US détente? I mean, Pyongyang right now seems to have fallen just a little bit off the radar.
Well, it might have fallen off the media radar, but actually North Korea right now has a bigger security impact globally than it has ever before. Its involvement, it's proven itself a useful military partner to Russia in Russia's war. It does have relations with Iran. I think we're watching closely to see what that looks like and how that evolves in the future. It has really talked about doubling down on building out its defense industrial complex. So while you have South Korea on the southern side helping out U.S. and U.S. allies in the war in Ukraine, and really looking to push for greater defense cooperation, you have North Korea on the northern side doing the same thing. It has more political power than it ever has, really having taken advantage and capitalized on the relationship with Russia. And Russia has really worked to integrate it into Russian-led networks as well. So, while the media is not paying attention, there's a lot of developments that are happening in Pyongyang that really put it on the map as a really formidable player right now.
Okay, so Jenny, 7 years after his last visit, President Xi returns to a North Korea, as you mentioned, that are more heavily armed, closer to Russia, and less interested in talks with the U.S. So I wonder why now? What is President Xi hoping to achieve from this trip?
Well, I do think it plays into China's larger efforts to be a more global leader right now, especially when there is so much uncertainty coming from the U.S. and among U.S. partners. We have seen, even before the summit with the U.S., we saw China has been working to try and upgrade its relations with North Korea, knowing that that relationship really had deteriorated over the past couple of years as North Korea has been courting Russia, and as the Russia-North Korea relationship has really been evolving into a very robust military cooperation, economic cooperation, political cooperation. In those circles, China hasn't had as loud of a voice and as big of a voice. And if there is any chance in the future for U.S.-North Korea talks to resume, certainly China wants to be and wants their interests represented in those talks as well.
So Kim Jong-un will likely roll out the red carpet for Xi Jinping, but beneath the fanfare, how do you see Kim going into this meeting? I mean, what exactly does Kim Jong-un want from China?
I think the relationship between China and North Korea is a constant. It is always there. China is still North Korea's largest trading partner. It is an economic lifeline. While North Korea, did prove the ability to survive without Chinese investment and Chinese trade during the pandemic, it obviously does better when the relationship is good. And so I do think, we have seen signs of increased trade over the past several months, and some signs that some trade routes might be reopened, the possibility for tourism to restart. And really also just to bolster North Korea, Kim Jong-un's political and political standing right now. He's obviously had great success with the Russians. He was really showcased last September at the parade, at the military parade in Beijing. And I think, really capitalizing on this moment now of, trying to bring in those benefits, trying to really bolster that relationship, while also emphasizing that he's not willing to negotiate on denuclearization. And if there was really that talk that went on in US-China negotiations, I'm sure one of the goals that North Korea would have in speaking with Xi Jinping now is to make sure that that's not on the table.
Okay, just follow up on that. Ahead of President Xi's visit, North Korea unveiled new military assets and doubled down on its nuclear status. So is Pyongyang effectively telling Beijing its nuclear arsenal is not up for discussion? And if so, has China effectively accepted the North as a permanent nuclear power, even if it won't say publicly?
Well, I think the messaging is for more than just China, but it's to the world, and especially to the US and to South Korea, that negotiations about denuclearization are really not an option right now, and reiterating that for the Chinese. I do believe the Chinese understand that, and they have been very careful not to talk about denuclearization publicly for several months now. That doesn't necessarily mean they accept North Korea's nuclear status. And behind closed doors, I think, the Chinese still talk about denuclearization as a goal, largely for the impact and the consequences it has to have that kind of recognition. And especially when looking at countries like South Korea and Japan and how they might respond to a permanent nuclearized North Korea, and in assessing their own nuclear options. So I think, China's trying to find that balance between non-recognition, but also understanding that this really isn't a point of negotiation at this point in time.
Washington and Seoul have both signaled openness to talking. The question is Pyongyang actually interested in engaging? And is President Xi going to go there to push for some engagement?
I think that is the question. That is the key question right now is North Korea thinking about negotiations? He has sent some relatively positive signals to the US, where if we can find the right agenda, that there's no reason not to negotiate. But the question, remains, what is that agenda? And I think, now that North Korea has come into its own power, has also talked and really emphasized this two-state policy between North and South Korea, really emphasizing permanent sovereignty as an end state for North Korea itself. I do think there's probably some negotiation that will go on, trying to figure out if there is room for US-North Korea talks to begin and what that agenda might be. But I think the trip right now, I think the agenda is largely going to be focused more on really bolstering that China and North Korea relationship, and especially on the trade and economic side of the aisle.
Okay, Jenny, we'll leave it there for now, but thank you very much for coming on the show. Jenny Town, a senior fellow and director at 38 North at the Stimson Center.